Paikiasothy Saravanamuttu is co-convener of the Centre of Monitoring Election Violence. He joins us from Colombo. First of all, can I ask you if the conditions around civil liberties and political rights is conducive to there being a free and fair election in Sri Lanka?
Well, the current government, whilst it was focusing on the economic renewal revival, did pass legislation which was rather injurious to democratic rights in that it was willfully sort of suppressing dissent. That was the ultimate outcome of it. But so in general, I think it should be okay because Sri Lankans will come out and express their opinions in the context of an election campaign, but there could be restrictions.
Such as?
Well, the Online Safety Act, for example, the most egregious of the recent legislation that was passed, does come up with very broad definitions of national unity, incitement to religious antipathy, hostility, all of those kinds of things, which have been used to curb dissent in the last 1.5 years. So that could continue. And the Election Commission has to be very vigilant that existing laws are not used in a way to circumscribe or restrict the opposition.
And how have people been responding to these restrictions on online content and the sort of political language they're able to use?
Well, I mean, I think there is a fair element of self-censorship, but there are still websites that, go ahead and say what they have to say. So it's a mixture. And I think the attitude is that, look, it's an election campaign. This is our right to voice our opinions, and we will go ahead and do so. But of course, the more inflammatory and extreme expressions of opinion will be curbed.
Okay, so you have content removal, blocks on social media platforms that could hurt the integrity of this election. Yeah. What about these presidential hopefuls? There's 40 of them.
Yes, but as your previous report suggested, there are only about 3 main principal candidates, and the others are either proxies to split the vote, and some people presumably doing it for the perks and advantages they can get as being a presidential candidate. There is Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe, the incumbent president, who seems to be climbing up somewhat in the polls. But I think the main criticism against him is that his government has laid too much of the burden for, the structural adjustment and all of that on the less fortunate and less able to pay. So it's the middle classes, the lower middle class, and the working class that has been hit. He has been criticized for a lack of empathy with regard to them. Mr. Sajith Premadasa, the leader of the opposition, is in a sense on the economic side. His policies are not that much different to Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe's, but he is somewhat little more left of center in terms of his ideological position. And Mr. Anura Kumar Dissanayake, of course, is the JVP, or the Janata Vigukti Peramuna candidate, who is running on behalf of the National People's Power movement. There is a lot of questions with regard to it. The JVP's argument is that you've given the 2 major parties a chance over the last 75 years. Now it's our turn, and we are the only ones who do anything about corruption. The issue with regard to corruption, of course, is that they have lots of files on people, but as to whether they have conclusive evidence to convict them in court is a different matter. So there's a concern that there might be an extrajudicial mechanism set up, and it'll impact the rule of law if the JVP was to win. And also there is a concern about the activities that they engaged in the period of 1988 to 1990, where there was a lot of violence and terrorism perpetrated by them as well.
Okay.
It's the first time it's a 3-point race. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for that assessment of the front runners. Paikiasothy Saravanamuttu, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.